Welcome back, everyone. Or if this is your first time here, greetings. Thanks for joining us. All right, slowly but surely, I'm getting off the script, but still have a lot of ground to cover for today. So sit back and enjoy it. Uh, I promise things will get better as we get more into these things. One of the things that they tell you in Podcasting 101 is to be consistent and not worry about keeping episodes to a certain time. Well, I hope you agree with that philosophy because this episode is going to be twice as long as usual. But it's a good thing, trust me. This week we're going to feature 4 new theater reviews of shows happening in the state of Massachusetts. There's going to be Primary Trust at a Speakeasy Stage, The Nerd happening with Stratton over in Fitchburg, The Hills of California being presented by the Huntington Theater in Boston, and Our Town happening over at the Lyric in Boston. Now, immediately following is going to be a special treat. Coming up at the Hanover Theater in Worcester on October 3rd will be a rock and roll tribute, double bill, not a tribute, but a double bill of 70s legendary band Foghat in concert with the equally legendary 80s band Starship. I had the chance to sit down with Roger Earl and Mickey Thomas from both of these bands, and we had a lot of fun. So I hope you'll enjoy our conversation. Now, here's where I might go off script a little bit. In addition to my review of Our Town, I have a little story to tell, and it concerns that show, myself, and a young actress named Nancy Travis. You may know Nancy from Last Man Standing, or 3 Men and a Baby, or Michael Myers' I Married an Axe Murderer, and other many IMDb credits. But Nancy is very much local. She's from Framingham, and she started my very first show, which was Our Town, at Framingham North. Yes, Framingham North High School back in 1977. Now, as I tell the story, I'm going to show you some pictures courtesy of the high school yearbook for the class of 1978. That wasn't my class. Nancy was 2 years ahead of me. By the way, Nancy's mother would help me later on land one of my first out-of-college temp jobs, and I remember her being the sweetest of persons. But Nancy and I barely knew each other personally, and while we were in school, so I would hardly call her a friend, but although she did play a pivotal role in my decision to pursue a life in theater for which I will always be grateful. Nancy was about 2 years ahead of me in school, and during Our Town, if you were to have asked me then if she'd have the career she has had now, I would have said doubtful, and there's a reason for it. I'm pleased to have been proven wrong, but let me explain why I might have said that at that time. You see, it was tech rehearsal, and back then these rehearsals easily could go well into the night, and this one certainly did. If we got out by midnight, I would have been surprised it was that early. Anyway, we were in dress tech and well into the third act of the story, and we get to the part where Emily, in Our Town, is allowed to return to Grover's Corners to revisit a typical uneventful day. Well, it proved to be a little bit more eventful than planned. Anyway, while she was doing this, several of us were seated in chairs depicting a cemetery outside of the town. I was playing Simon Stimson, the drunken choir director, troubled choir director. And we were told by our director, who I will affectionately call Herr Schlickman, not to react. And I mean not to react at all. Zero. This is where I would get into trouble with the director, partly in thanks to Nancy. You see, Nancy's character, Emily, had to point out various landmarks in the town. And there was one landmark Nancy couldn't say correctly. Livery stable. Seems simple enough, right? Wasn't happening. Repeatedly, meaning it might have only been twice, but it felt like 15 times. Nancy kept saying livery stable over and over and over again. And the more she said it, the more laughs came from us, dead folk, seated directly behind her, especially this goofy freshman kid who was doing his first real play. Now, the senior student playing the show's stage manager was ready to throttle Nancy as she kept misfiring on that line, on that particular line. And me, I'm ready to keel over in my chair because I thought it was all hilarious. But the last time I laughed would be my last time laughing because the director verbally scolded me. And by that, I mean he injected more fear into me than I had ever experienced in my 15-year-old life. So while we had a quick break once more to regroup and regain composure, I found a hairpin in the dressing room nearby, and I concealed it within my burial suit. So several more times Nancy flubbed the line, and each time I would surreptitiously stab myself just above the wrist with a hairpin to keep from laughing. Well, it worked. Nancy finally got the line right, the scene went fine, and we continued on. However, when I got home that night, or was it morning, I noticed I was bleeding profusely from where I had been jabbing myself with the hairpin. I still have the scar. And when I tell people the story while showing them my unique self-induced theatrical tattoo, they all seem to have the same reaction, which is more of a realization than an understanding as to the extreme lengths that I would go to for my art. Now, maybe it's a Framingham thing, or maybe something to do with that North High Schlickman era, but actor, comedian Roger Cabler, who has since become a friend, he is famous for his Robin Williams Experience shows, also came out of that particular time, and between Roger, Nancy, and myself, it is apparent that there was something in the well we drank from back then. And that's my recollection of that time, and that's why Our Town holds a special place in my heart. So now, here are the reviews of this week, starting with Our Town from the Lyric Stage. I hope you enjoy. Lyric Stage Company breathes new life into the literary masterpiece that is Thornton Wilder's Our Town, and it is a production that reminds us of what theater ought to be. Now, to begin with, this is going to feel less like a review and more like a thank you note, because damn it, thank you to the entire Lyric Stage cast and creative team behind this inventive staging of Our Town to help reaffirm why it remains the quintessential American play. Our Town is a 3-act play presented by the Lyric again, thankfully, as two, written by Wilder in 1938. The story of Our Town revolves around the fictional American town of Grover's Corners between 1901 and 1913 through the everyday lives of its citizens. Act 1 is a typical day in the life of those in the town. The second act is about 3 years later and focuses on the wedding of two of the residents of the town. And the final act is 9 years later and looks at the mortality and immortality through the eyes, both open and closed, of the characters. Each member of this 12-actor Lyric Stage Company ensemble shines in their individual and collective moments, elevated by the formidable approach taken by director Courtney O'Connor. Our Town holds a very special place in my heart, and I am thankful that there is not one but two mass stagings occurring over the next few months. This one now happening at the Lyric Stage in Boston, and one happening later in December over in Worcester by Worcester County Light Opera Company. Catch both if you are able. In this latest staging by the Lyric, the focus of Our Town is less on how these New Hampshire residents speak, and instead is more on what these folks are saying, maintaining the play's true relevancy after nearly 9 decades. The role of the stage manager, our guide through the story, has become a kind of blueprint for most narrators in plays that have come since, the role having been cemented in portrayals by such legendary actors as Hal Holbrook, Henry Fonda, Alan Alda, Paul Newman, and was performed in the most recent revival by Big Bang Theory actor Jim Parsons. Will McGarahan, as the Lyrics stage manager, is no less outstanding in the role, comfortable while directly addressing the audience, communicating in a frank, compelling way the heartfelt, occasionally intimate nature of the story without becoming overly or overtly sentimental. His character exists only to relay the events of what we are about to witness, not to tell us how we should feel about those events. Part of the appeal of the Lyric Stage Company show is in the bare-bones approach taken to tell the story of Grover's Corners, which is less about geographical location, but more about interpersonal human relationships and existence itself. More on that later. There was little adorning the Lyric stage space at all, allowing the concentration of the storytelling to be executed solely by the actors. For the Lyrics' inventive staging, there is a set looking much like a large circular wooden puzzle, with pieces being moved around to form varied configurations, denoting different locations within Grover's Corners. During the scenes, the actors at the Lyric Stage Company production use virtually no props, instead using mime or pantomime to denote the actions being performed. When the lyric actors are not performing, they do not simply exit the stage. They sit in the audience with us, either in seats or in the aisles, all of them enjoying observing the events of the play as they unfold along with the rest of us, which is a nice feeling. Among the Grover's Corners residents we meet are the Gibbs and Webb families. For the former Gibbs family, we meet Doc Gibbs, played by Robert Nigerian, his wife Julia, Tamika Marie Bridwell, along with their two children, George, played by Dan Garcia, and Rebecca, played by Kathy St. George, who also portrays multiple roles. In the latter Webb family, there is Charles, played by DeLon Grant, editor of the local newspaper, and his wife Myrtle, played by Amanda Collins, daughter Emily, Josephine Moshiri Elwood, and son Wally, Darren Paul, who also portrays local cop Constable Warren. The final act is where Wilder gets to explore higher, more existential themes such as life, death, existence, and even non-existence. Whether any of those great things we leave behind are really any more important than those little things, like how we lived our own mundane, day-to-day existence while we were here. At approximately 2 hours, 10 minutes with one intermission, Our Town continues at the Lyric Stage Company until October 19th and is one place worth visiting multiple times. For more information and tickets, contact the Lyric box office at 617-585-5678 or go to lyricstage.com. Speakeasy Stage Company opens their 35th season with Primary Trust, an accounting of one man's complex journey navigating through life with a traveling companion only he can see. The poignant 2024 Pulitzer Prize-winning one-act play from Ebony Booth is a charming essay on one man's difficulties interacting with others after experiencing a horrendous tragedy as a child. Booth's short but sweet story features a marvelous four-person cast that is adeptly directed by Don M. Simmons for Speakeasy Stage. The Primary Trust Speakeasy set is kept intentionally minimal, but it is extremely effective, allowing for the multiple transitions that take place over the course of the play's 90 minutes. Many of those transitions are handled through cleverly pinpointed lighting and sound cues. In Primary Trust, we meet Kenneth, played by David J. Castillo, whose beloved mother unexpectedly passed away when he was very young, only 10 years old, leaving him withdrawn from life. This gut-wrenching loss has left Kenneth in a permanently nervous, anxious, emotional state, deepened by a serious inability to engage in any kind of social interaction. Further compounding the above for Kenneth is being a black man living in a predominantly white town. So, Kenneth has invented his own primary trust into his imaginary black friend, Bert, played by Arthur Gomez, who, spoiler alert, is an apparition of a man who was important to Kenneth when his mother passed. A stellar performance at Speakeasy Stage Company is given by Castillo, who sympathetically pivots his character effortlessly when Kenneth is forced into a new career after spending 20 years intentionally hiding away from the world by working in a bookstore. Gomez is splendid as Bert, who serves as a kind of moral and social guide for Kenneth, helping Kenneth to cope with the multiple changes about to be forced upon him when the bookstore owner, Clay, as played by Luis Negron, serving in multiple roles, advises Kenneth he is selling the store, putting Kenneth out of the only job he has known. Kenneth spends most of his evenings at a local tiki bar, sipping Mai Tais, ordered for two, one for him and one for his drinking buddy, Bert. Kenneth is advised by tiki bar waitress Karina, played by Janelle Grace, also serving in multiple roles, that a local bank is hiring and recommends he submit an employment application to Primary Trust. After Kenneth is interviewed by Sam, also played by Negron, Kenneth is hired, and although he is completely sure and petrified he will fail at this new job, no one is more surprised than he when he begins to actually succeed at the bank as a new teller. Grace is both versatile and hilarious as the varied waitstaff at the tiki bar and as the multiple unique customers Kenneth must interact with at the bank. Another strength to the Booth script is that it never becomes overly maudlin or wallowing in the depths of despair, with Kenneth crashing and burning, meeting with failure upon failure, and coming across like the world's ultimate sad sack loser, although it easily could have gone that route. Instead, though, and thankfully, it is Castillo's compassionate, emotionally tuned-in performance as Kenneth that moves us and keeps us invested in what happens to Kenneth as life changes are aggressively forced upon him and we find ourselves rooting for Kenneth to succeed. Approximately 90 minutes with no intermission, Primary Trust runs through October 11th, 2025 in Boston at the Speakeasy Stage, so make sure to catch this charming little show before it ultimately withdraws from the Boston area. For tickets and more information, contact Speakeasy Box Office at 617-933-8600 or visit speakeasystage.com. Stratton Players ends the summer and kicks off the first week of fall with a fun, occasionally absurd show with The Nerd, a show that will remind people why certain promises should never be made under duress. The two-act comedy comes from Larry Shue, who also wrote the highly acclaimed award-winning The Foreigner, and the Stratton cast and creative team give this nerd its all under the capable guidance of director Andrew DeSisto. The initial performance of The Nerd, debuting in 1981, had an impressive run in London's West End. By 1987, The Nerd transferred to Broadway in a production starring Mark Hamill and directed by Charles Nelson Riley, which ran until 1988, closing it to 441 performances. Stratton Players' The Nerd takes place in Terre Haute, Indiana, in late 1979, where we meet architect Willem Cubbert, played by Jim Ethier. Some ways you can tell the time and place outside of the tacky late 70s styled furniture is in a number of archaic references, such as how reheating food isn't referred to as being microwaved, or in how people still had answering machines requiring a master's degree in nuclear engineering to figure out. Also, there's a bar with enough booze on it, a la Virginia Woolf. Willem would need to be required to have his own liquor resale license. Willem is having an important dinner party for an important client, Warnock Waldegrave, played by Adam P. Kahn, his stressed-out wife Clelia, played by Aurora Graybill, and their rambunctious, in lieu of other more accurately descriptive synonyms, son Thor, played by James DeSisto. This party gets interrupted by the arrival of an ape-clad clod who turns out to be Rick Stedman, played by Peter Russo, an old army buddy that reached out to Willem earlier, thinking they were invited to the party and, as such, plans to stay after the party with Willem indefinitely. This is the crazy premise of The Nerd, and because of a battle line promise Willem made to Rick in Vietnam, he feels obligated to put up with the myriads of mayhem Rick brings not only to the party, but to Willem's life. Ethier is outstanding as the sorely conflicted Willem, whose own lack of backbone, combined with his substantial moral compass, seems equally detrimental to him, exacerbating much of the chaos brings into his home. Meanwhile, Russo as Rick, a.k.a. The Nerd, fresh from a chalk-making factory, a backstory that needed more fleshing out, is relentlessly annoying, and from the moment he comes through Rick's door dressed up as an ape, his very presence instantly serves as itching powder to everyone else on stage. Two of Willem's closest friends, Tansy, played by Chelsea Patrice, and Axel, played by Margot Thompson, watch helplessly as Rick seems upset to upend everything just as he simultaneously ups William's blood pressure. Patrice as Tansy impresses as the intelligent, supportive friend and not quite girlfriend of Willem, while Thompson is delightfully humorous as the sarcastic and quick-witted Alex, a drama critic. Tansy has her own troubled subplot, which tends to get lost in the turmoil Rick brings to Willem. Kahn, as arrogant, humorless businessman and hotelier Waldegrave, nails the amalgamized appeal of David White's Larry Tate from Bewitched and Gail Gordon's Mr. Mooney from The Lucy Show, serving as an old-timey sitcom boss, and it is that very sitcom feel that is where a lot of Shue's plot for The Nerd ultimately tends to land. There's a strong sense that this play feels more like an elongated episode of an old sitcom, straight out of the days of Lucy, Bewitched, or even Three's Company. As written, Thor, for actor James DeSisto, is given very little to do outside of being an annoying child and react to the insanity Rick brings forth. Yet for what little his character has been given to do, DeSisto does exceptionally well with the material. As Waldegrave's intensely wound-up wife Clelia, Grable probably provides some of the play's most unexpected laughs, especially in how clearly it deals with her own highly stressful moments. The only way Rick and friends can correct the new downward spiraling trajectory of his life is to somehow, some way, get rid of Rick. The second act is far funnier than the first, with a lot of twists and turns near the end, which elevates the material from its dated sitcom leanings. Approximately 2 hours with one intermission, the nerd continues tormenting Willem in Fitchburg until September 28th, 2025. And for those that are just into Schadenfreude, Google it. This is one Stratton show over which you'll just go ape. For tickets, contact Stratton at 978-345-6066 or email. Huntington Theater Company presents a lavish staging of the highly acclaimed The Hills of California, which will have you astounded as the show's curtain rises and equally stunned by the story at its conclusion, but for very different reasons. Written by British playwright Jez Butterworth, the Huntington production of The Hills of California is directed by Loretta Greco and is given the ultimate epic storytelling treatment. After some success in London's West End, The Hills of California transferred to Broadway in 2024, resulting in actress Laura Donnelly receiving a Tony Award nomination, a Drama Desk Award, and Critics' Circle Award for her portrayal of Veronica and Joan in the Broadway production. With all its accolades, and while it is now impeccably staged by Greco at the Huntington in epic fashion, it is just a shame that the Butterworth saga itself isn't as epic a story as the set upon which it is told. First, let's talk about that set. As the show opens, you will literally be stunned by the sight of the magnificent Huntington Theater Company set of a lobby of an old rooming house in Blackpool, a seaside town in the county of Lancashire, England. If you are seated in the orchestra section, your neck will literally arch further and further back as you watch the Huntington curtain lift and seemingly never stop. There seems to be no end to the set. As the curtain keeps going and going, it continues further and further upward toward the ceiling, revealing the set as it fills the entire stage space. Later, as the story is told in flashbacks, the set turns, and you cannot believe it when it begins to move. While you have complete faith in its success, you still fully find yourself expecting the set to catastrophically crash at the top as it turns. Of course, it doesn't, but it is thrilling each time this magnificent structure turns, with multiple clever openings that are not just there for show, but to help tell the story. One of the most wondrously ingenious of sets, which makes it ultimately disappointing that the Butterworth story being told on this set does not rise to the same level of wonder. The Hills of California has little to do with California, but rather takes place in this hot, sticky English suburb. We learn the saga of the four Webb sisters, and we begin by meeting three of them as adults, one by one. Jillian, played by Karen Killeen, Ruby, played by Amy Doherty, and Gloria, played by Amanda Kristen Nichols, have all reunited at their mother's home as their mother lay close to death. Killeen impresses as the anxious and nervous Jillian, while Doherty as Ruby effectively serves as a counterpoint by being more upbeat and trying to maintain what little light exists in such a bleak and darkened home. Nichols provides the most riveting performance as the most embittered sister Gloria, simply brutal from the moment she appears, lashing out at everyone including her own spouse and children. There are reasons for her behavior and reasons for the behavior of the others, evidenced by what little empathy there seems to be for their failing matriarch, issues both explored and revealed later in the story. The last sister is noticeably, but not surprisingly, absent, and much of the story that follows explains why. Through a series of flashbacks, the set turns, and after some stunned looks and noticeable gasps from the audience, we have traveled back in time to when the girls were young, just coming up to a pivotal moment in their collective lives. Playing the sisters at an earlier age are young Gloria, played by Megan Carey, young Ruby, played by Chloe Holdenhire, and young Jillian, played by Nicole Mulready, and the missing adult sister, young Joan, played by Kate Fitzgerald. All of the above give exemplary performance, but it is Fitzgerald as the more rambunctious, boundary-testing, and flirtatious young Joan that has been given the most meat to the Butterworth story as it unfolds. The girl's mother, Veronica, played by Allison Jean White, runs the rooming house with a firm hand and strict rules and a harsh tongue. She runs her daughters much the same, trying to hone their noticeable singing talents into an act a la the Andrews Sisters, of which she is obsessed. The quartet of young singers are delightful to listen to, but unfortunately those moments are quite minimal, and only further the ultimate issue within the story. Being a product of her era, Veronica does not see that the world is changing far more rapidly away from the time and the music she admires. Undaunted, she nevertheless runs the girls ragged with rehearsals in an effort to make them famous, and she is about to land a huge opportunity for them. Of course, Veronica does this not only to make them stars, but to make herself famous, hoping to live vicariously through their ultimate success in the process. If you just now felt like a light bulb just appeared above your head, there you have it. Meaning if the above reads as a tad familiar, that's the problem. Yes, dear theater travelers, we have been here before. In Hills is very much the same story as Gypsy, only told not as a musical with more horrific consequences, ultimately not as entertaining. With the storytelling actually rising above the story itself, it is difficult to praise what there is here. However, if you're coming to this pity party with fresh eyes, you might very well enjoy the saga of these four sisters. Also, the marvelously diverse performance of White as Veronica and then later as the adult Joan is exemplary and what separates the show from others like it. Ultimately, the depths of despair and darkness that exist within the sisters in their mother's home as adults is so heavy it makes us yearn for more lightness, like the light of this reviewer can recall seeing way back when he also lived in the hills of California. Okay, it was Van Nuys of the Valley, but still. Approximately 2 hours, 30 minutes with one intermission, and as it continues at the Huntington Theater in Boston until October 12th, the hills of California seem more like a desperate escape from mountainous family turmoil. For tickets and more information, contact the Huntington online at huntingtontheater.org at 617-266-0800 or in person at the Huntington Theater, 264 Huntington Avenue, Boston. Welcome back. Just wanted to reiterate before we continue. I've mentioned it before. If you have not yet sent me information, make sure to send any information on upcoming shows or any requests to review to reviews@metrmag.com. That way I can get you onto our calendar. We would never just show up unannounced, uninvited, and ambush any theater group with a review. So please make sure to reach out and we'll get you on our calendar as soon as possible, if we can fit you in. Now, thank you very much.
Live anymore. He called me up one day and he said, Rog, you need this guy.
You still there?
Rodney O'Quinn, he's a mini-me. It was really cool. The bass player's handing another one, and Rodney O'Quinn is an absolute gas. And Scott Holt played for 10 years with Buddy Guy, so you know he can play.
So these are guys that have really paid their dues.
Oh, yeah, great players. I love them. They're my brothers.
All right, Mickey, for Starship, I show you on lead vocals, rhythm guitar, Daryl Verduzco on drums and backing vocals, Phil Bennett, keyboards, backing vocals, Jeff Adams, bass, backing vocals, John Roth, lead guitar, backing vocals, and Chelsea Foster on lead vocals. Are those all correct?
Those are all correct. Yep. And Daryl and Phil have been with me for over 30 years.
Wow.
Jeff on bass has been with me for 25 years. So, you know, the core group of this band has been together longer than any other incarnation of the band, going all the way back to the 60s, by far, really. And then, and John Roth, as you mentioned, been with me for, 12 years now, I think. And Chelsea's the new member. And she's brought a lot of new energy into the band. So, yeah, and you know, it's great when you to have guys that you've been together with for that long, and as Roger said, being on the road together, you know, it's family. They're my brothers and sisters, and you know, sometimes we don't always get along, just like any family that's been together for a long, long time. But we all love each other, so we always manage to work it out somehow.
Now, in the promo package provided by your management teams in Hanover, it states one can expect to hear hits from Starship and Jefferson Starship and Starship's live performances, as well as a few selections from Jefferson Airplane as a nod to both bands' beginning. Now, do you feel those older tunes still resonate with audience? And Roger, I'll ask that question to you of Foghead's catalog as well.
For me, yeah, of course. Fooled Around still resonates big time with the audience. You know, partly what's helped is it's appeared in so many movies over the years. So
Hmm.
that has helped. Like, you know, most recently it was in Guardians of the Galaxy. So that exposed us to a whole new younger audience, that song. And then, you know, in the show, we don't pretend to be the Jefferson Starship or the Jefferson Airplane. But at some point, I'll say we've had a long musical history, so we'd like to pay a little homage to our musical history. And Chelsea will sing White Rabbit and Somebody to Love, and sometimes I'll do Miracles and Count on Me. And then, you know, it's just kind of incorporating part of the history of the band. I mean, and it goes over great. Of course, people love it. You know, younger audiences, young people love White Rabbit and Somebody to Love. They relate
Yeah,
to those as if,
great tune.
yeah.
Similar feeling for you, Roger?
Uh, yeah. Well, let's face it. I mean, the stuff's still played to this day. You know, on classic vinyl, on the radio. You know, the rock stations play. You know, Just Want to Make Love to You, Fall for the City, Slow Ride, Stone Blue. Yeah, we had one ballad for Third Time Lucky. It doesn't get played so much anymore, but we get requests for it. So, as long as we got like more than an hour to play, we put that one in. But yeah, I mean, the songs are still on the radio.
Now, this may be a little controversial, but Foghat is billed with the distinction Boogie Kings for over 5 decades. Now, for me, my generation, I'm 63, but you know, my generation and younger, we would probably associate boogie with disco, but I know you mean boogie in a very different context, I'm sure. So just to clarify, what in your impression is boogie and what exactly makes Foghat Boogie Kings?
Well, let's just start with disco. The Tramps, Disco Inferno. When that plays on the radio, I get up and dance. I'm sorry.
So why
I can't
not?
help myself. It's a great
Yeah.
tune. It's one of the greatest tunes ever. And anyway, yeah, it's I'm not really sure how to answer that. It's just like it's music, you know, music. Look,
Whatever
music
makes
is
you groove?
what makes everything work. Without music in the world, life would be a mistake.
Yeah. I think, you know, the boogie, it goes like Roger was saying earlier about the blues. It goes back to the blues, you know,
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
boogie chillin', you know, and, you
Yeah,
know, that's how,
Johnny
that's
Hooker.
how boogie started. Yeah.
But initially, I would consider it, you know, boogie woogie piano, you know,
Yeah.
Sure.
Lewis stuff like that. My father played piano. My older brother played piano. Colin Earl, he was with Mungo Jerry. So that's where I first heard the term boogie. But yeah, boogie chilling, John Lee Hooker,
Yeah.
And it's all good. It's all good.
American music.
Yeah. Uh,
Now, Mickey, I visited your website and I saw that you had a holiday album. With Christmas only 112 days away from
yeah.
today, you want to give it a plug? I mean, what songs are on it?
Well, I wanted to make a Christmas album for a long time. And the kind of Christmas record I wanted to make was I wanted to be true to the songs that I grew up listening to as a kid and as a young man. So I tried to channel my inner Andy Williams, Jack Jones, Frank Sinatra. So it's really has that kind of a vibe to it. I wanted it to be very nostalgic and kind of whimsical. Most of the songs all fit together and as if you're like sitting by the fireplace with the snow falling outside the window and the Christmas tree lit up and stuff like that. So it's a throwback. And I
I'm
did
telling
it
you,
with
I'm
some,
buying it. I'm buying it today.
yeah, yeah,
Now,
check it out.
but Roger, this begs to mind the question: will Foghat ever release a holiday album? I mean, I can
Uh,
just imagine you guys your approach to White Christmas and First Noel. I mean, it must be awesome.
but we've actually made 5 or 6 songs over the years, and we talk about putting it out and putting it together. But what happens is, as we approach Christmas, we're really busy, and like there's not enough time to get it out. But yeah, there's 3 or 4 of our songs get played on the radio. Making an album, nah. The little drummer boy.
Yeah. There you go. I could see you
Yeah,
doing it.
that one would fit though, right?
All right.
Um,
This last question is going to be for both you guys, and then I'll let you go. There's a select few that are coming to the Worcester show on October 3rd who are probably, I know it sounds crazy, but they're going to be unfamiliar with either band, dragged to the show by a loved one or in some cases a spouse. Now, what do you hope that those unfamiliar with Starship or Foghat coming to see your show will walk away with after hearing you play at the Hanover Theater? Either one of you.
I think they'll walk away surprised at the energy level of the show that they're going to see. That both bands have a surprising amount of energy and enthusiasm, and we don't act our age, right?
No, but the thing is, people come to see live shows to get away from the daily toil. I mean, let's face it, there's a bunch of stuff going on out there that
Yeah.
is down. You come to a show to be lifted up, to enjoy the music, to have a good time. Forget about everything that's outside. You're here, laugh, dance, sing along. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to end this, and but I can't imagine anyone walking away from one of your shows, depressed. I think it will be a lot of fun, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy it.
No depression here. Leave that outside the door.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, I want to thank you both. I mean, this has been a pleasure. Like I said, an honor taking part in my experimental first Zoom interview. And, I hope to catch the show when it hits the Hanover and on October 3rd. And, continue best wishes to both of you and happy trails.
You're going to be there, Kevin, right?
I'm absolutely going to try and be there.
No, trying isn't good enough, is it?
You want me to be there, Roger?
You have to be there. Bring your friends and everybody, and we'll have a glass of wine. I'll have a glass of wine after the show.
Yeah.
Thank you both very much. I sincerely appreciate the time.
Good seeing you,
You're
Mickey.
welcome. Thank you. Hey, I'll see you in a couple of weeks, Roger.
Yeah. All right. Be safe.
Okay, man. You too.
Bye-bye, gentlemen.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's all for this episode. Come back next week when we'll take a look at shows debuting for the first weekend of October and continue looking at everything on the METRMag website that is happening in Massachusetts Theater. Thank you very much, and continued best wishes.